Sashi
Pöge Jojin
Metoda Regarding Singing the Gamade
Sangye Jinpo
Gobernanda
Guru Rana Mendala Kanya Kaya
Sangye
Chedan Zoye Jovadu Dami Dagi Jinye Ola Penche Sangye Drupara Sho
Sangye
Chedan Zoye Chanala Chanjopadu Dagi Jinye Gibe Sanangye Ola Penche Sangye Drupara Sho
Sangye
Chedan Zoye Chanala Chanjopadu Dagi Jinye Gibe Sanangye Ola Penche Sangye Drupara Sho
That's something values.
Six. Kanan mo tamjik ranjing gi pamba ni ro wa tela.
Kala tong. Ya That's it, says that he lived out of his Jeffrey. Tashing Jeva.
He's not wearing his microphone. The microphone. No. It's hidden.
Oh, that's it. That Kala, Mobotamje, Ganshingi, Tomba Ni, Roma Della, Jige Meva, that Tamje, Roma Euros, that is Kala Tomba Ni Roma, that Roma Nisia Giarva, 36 years, or the Brando 6 years. What is that?
No. Where we are, if you look at page 136, so this is a passage quoted from the Prasanapada by the master Chandrakirti. And so what this passage is explaining is actually some lines from Nagarjuna that were actually, quoted above and discussed above. And so if you look at the bottom of the quote on page 136, you can see where it says, therefore, in that way, Nagarjuna says, for those to whom emptiness makes sense, everything makes sense.
Tomba ni di roa tela da tomba ni kala tachu kala sinja kala ani mabatam jara shi gu tuba tomba tela ani jige mebe jada tamje roa da nachi tamje temba hila subatu su tegri seje Kala tomba ni rashi jube tomba ni roa telas kelen batila ni jige meba ni ma tamje kanje jige meba teta tamje roa jubus yamba shila soba yamba ni la soba konde koada ni su ya sona soba teta tamje roa juburiesche tongni roa tila roa juro jedar jurishina 다 그나라신데 매발아 내니 탐제 룽다한테 가르랬으나 강이체를 고자니 땡지 대벌 중화라 동바 이지 마디 땡지 대벌 중화라 땡지 동바 이스 라신이 메시게 땡지 대벌 중화 이스 아니 Ranching Tenji Treba Jumala, Tombani, Matis, Tombanis, Ranching Tongs, Mati. Tichi Cherishina, Gala Tombani, Ruatella, Tenji Treba Jumala, Rungla. Gala Ranching Meba Ruatella, and it Tenji Tegris. Ranching Nepati. Ranching Trubayana, Tenji Tig Maris, the Kala Tomba Ruatilla, Tenji Trebachuma, Jums. Ranching the Tombatilla, Tenji Tigris. The Tenji Rumla, that Tenji Mena, Tenshila Sobatis Yamari. Eugenia Tenji Debu, Debula Kondegi, Kalasa, Kundeg Namshati Mari. 아니 건대기 남샤티기 말이 건대기 남샤세야지 단걸로 겐지 그래서 그래 뭐뭐 탐제 규정을 때는 좀 그거 여러봐 당음이 그 간대지니 차시를 써봐 자신을 때는 중국이야리 자신을 때는 중국에서 다 땡된 메테나 네 최탐제 메테버시 가라 땡제 되버 중앙으로 telha 파베 땡바신 리버 그로 스타디야 어때 어려
So we're going through this passage then. So what it's saying on bottom page 35, we read the first part, that should be just right. For those to whom the sentence of intrinsic existence of all things makes sense, everything that has been mentioned also makes sense. Why? Because we call dependent arising emptiness, thus dependent arising makes sense in a system which emptiness makes sense. And the Four Noble Truths are reasonable for those to whom dependent arising makes sense. Why? Because only what arises dependently can be suffering, not what does not arise dependently, since what arises dependently lacks intrinsic nature, it is empty. That's about where we got to. So what this is saying is so whatever is empty, if you take the position that whatever is empty of existing by its own nature, then everything is viable. All phenomena are viable, or they're reasonable, they work. Likewise, so that means that you can say that the Four Truths would be viable, and so on. So this is if you accept emptiness of existing by its own nature. For that, then everything, the Four Truths, the cyclic existence, the lower realms, all of these work, they're all viable. So in what way are they, would they be reasonable or, reasonable or suitable? Well, here, dependent arising is referred to as emptiness of existing by its own nature. So why this is that for whatever emptiness is viable, is suitable, then dependent arising is viable. So in other words, in a system which says everything is empty, for a system in which emptiness of existing by its own nature is suitable, then the dependent arising is also going to be viable. Whereas if things did not exist by their own, if they weren't empty of existing by their own nature, in other words, if they did exist by their own nature, then none of that would be suitable. None of that would work. And in that case, you'd have to say there's no dependent arising. If there's no dependent arising, then the Four Truths and so forth couldn't work. Cause and effect wouldn't work. Cyclic existence and nirvana would not work, because in the case of things, if you consider like all phenomena being either things or non-things, effective phenomena or non-effective phenomena, then the effective phenomena or things, those are produced depending upon causes and conditions, whereas non-things, they still, they're still dependent. What they depend upon is parts.
Tenju mayin kubri. Ta rashi ki tuna ta tenju mayin kubri. Tuda ken shen la matu ba tuba chiku yare. Tila rashi ki tuba sigare. Ani rashi ki nyan siyati Jujen la tene, juda gen la tene, juan yesane rashingi mes. Rawa mes. Pene, Debuti la rawa ya mare. Debuti gyula tene chungu yarwa. Tene, chajen di, kuro rawa mes itu, chajen di chasha la tene dhugu yar. Chajen di chasha la matun, kutubse meba insane, ko around dhugu mares. Kare resina, chajen di chasha chili tene dhugu res. Ane debu di, gyula tene dhugu res. Ya gyu di, debu la tene shabu kare. Debu di, kya insan di chane ko gyu shagi yare. Gyu siya di, debu di ve jawa chi ve chane, ni gyu shabu yare. Di insan, debu di gyula tene dhugu yare. Gyu di debu di ve jawa chi ve chane, gyu shabu yare. Jesan, ko siya na metu ba kanshi dhugu yam marwa. Kanta chine, chu kanta chine, 원하는 차시할 때는 두고래 원하는 규정할 때는 두고래 뒤에서는 네 라싱의 똥세야 되리스 라싱의 똥세야 돼 라싱의 똥바이나 다 텐디 태기야 라싱의 그바이나 텐디 용기야 말이야 텐디세야 지를 되는 그바세야 봐 라싱의 두나 되면 두고래 봐 어디에 있었다? 튕규 배란식이 매세야지. 다스em 잠바 매세데 그 란식이 매세 란식이 뚝세야지 그런 게 상무치 담으러가. 다 튕규 배란식이 매세야되다. 문에 란식 매베디. 와르브디. 다다치리기 버리. 셈 잠바 매신제디 란식이 유세야지. Domingi chane shegi amare. Ranshingi trusina anju ranshingi trusitu tamba ranju pena kibu zoala tene machungi rile sobatusu ko karasu zuju mari zoala tene jumu mari ko ranshingi trupte veres chik shegi ba di kibu kujen kibu zoala tene machunga insana biyare. Isi apa goa sabdu tana ni ranshingi trup sayati yuji kana yamma tebaji trupati kogu yare. Ko goa tere yapu jayga ina nandu rira wata tusu karere sene zoali machunga re ko ranju re sayaji ranju ki tarka sayaji tuga Could Tambukune Jitin to into tobacco or to do bit of Chilea, Ranjus Gero. The Kuati Paranjus in a Kana Matuba to could that Ranju Mopasiati any Karasude? Ranju Mopasiati, give it to a chain to Shaba Maiba. Jitin Kuran to Dune, Yuba. Ye ko Ranju said Marabata Pat, Yujan didn't Krigan Amach, Deverva. Jiden Amash Shine, Jidechim Chai into Tambani, to them Mambuchi do the Chanani Rapatus to Verva. Yes, and Ranju Seati, Karasukoati Pata Indi, Kana Mativa to Versace, Shigutua. Just a rising to Matiri. What ended? Can I am to Gugaris? That is.
Yeah, so thing versus non-thing. Thing means like effective phenomena, so like impermanent. Non-thing would be something which is permanent. Existing. So when we talk about something existing by its own nature, what that means is not depending upon anything else, including not depending upon causes and conditions. So in other words, not being a dependent arising. So that's what existing by its own nature comes down to. That's what it means. It means not being dependent, existing without depending upon anything else. And so when we talk about a result, so that doesn't exist by its own nature. It doesn't have any independent existence. It depends upon a cause to produce it. Likewise, something which has parts depends upon the parts. It doesn't have some kind of independent existence. It depends upon the parts. So it doesn't exist. It doesn't have that independent existence. It doesn't exist by its own nature. So when you talk about existing by its own nature, it means not depending on anything else. Not existing by its own nature, not existing by its own nature because it depends on other things. So, for example, even of course, it's very clear that results don't exist independently because they depend upon their causes. The cause also depends in some way upon the result, because something is only a cause because it produces a result. So if there was no result, then it wouldn't be a cause. You wouldn't be able to posit it as a cause. So in this system, also causes rely upon their results. So all phenomena are dependent. Yes. So in other words, the cause is posited as a cause because it does the action of producing a result. So it's also dependent. So then what this means then is all phenomena are dependent. They depend upon their parts. There are phenomena also which depend upon causes and conditions. And because everything is dependent, therefore they have to be empty of existing by their own nature. Once everything is empty of existing by its own nature, then everything, everything about the dependent arising is viable. It works. If things exist by their own nature, then the whole setup of dependent arising doesn't work at all. It's not viable at all. So, because existing by its own nature would mean not reliant upon anything else. Not depending upon anything else, not relying upon anything else. So that's why in the Prasangika system, they'll say everything is empty of existing by its own nature. And for a system, in which everything is empty of existing by its own nature, then dependent arising is viable. So, of course, in the Swatantrika system and below, they would say they wouldn't say that. They would say that and that everything exists by its own nature, and they have their they have something in mind when they have some idea about what it means to exist by its own nature and why everything should exist by their own nature. But in any case, the Prasanghikas, what they say is that nothing exists by its own nature, and everything is a dependent arising. So when we look at this idea of existing by its own nature, in what people normally say, think that something exists by its own nature, it's got the idea of not depending upon anything else, in the sense that, for example, like a mountain doesn't, you can have this idea, it sort of like exists by nature. It's there by nature. Nobody had to make it. It didn't come about through depending upon the efforts of people building it and constructing it. So we say that it exists by nature. And so it has that kind of connotation. So something that is independent in that way. But actually, if you sort of like go into it, then you can say, well, actually, it doesn't. Even the mountain doesn't exist by its own nature. It's not something a natural phenomenon in that sense. Even though it didn't require the effort of people to build it, still, nevertheless, it depends upon prior causes and conditions. It's true that when the world was formed, then the mountains formed, and they didn't require somebody to come along and make them. But still, there's a whole sort of like cause and effect process that led to the creation of the world and the mountains and so on in them. So therefore, even though the fact that people weren't involved in building the mountains is taken as a reason by some to say, well, therefore they're just natural, they exist by their own nature. But we can see that in fact that's not the case.
That is the Kangisir Kujan attended Tebachua, Tomba Niji Mati, each Kala Tomba Niru. Ichi Darshina, Kangisir Tenji Jabarchuani, Tungetu Juru City, Tenji Jabarchuani, Tungetu Juru City Tamba, Lenul Nila Tene, Juani. Lengi tenji deba chuma sede tenji seati lengi ni la tene chuma ni ta tunge tu shabar tunge tem bas tunge seati kare sene ju lengi ni ki ongu jue ju lengi ni ko ongu jue ni mo bushila tunge silabare jasa tenji deba chuma ni tunge tu jo sede tenji deba chuma le karasuwe le ni la tene chuma ni tunge tu jo jasa tunge temba siya di yon la karasere le ni la tene chuma kubiyarwa jasa tenji deba chuma le ni buti mena ni sele tene tunge temba siya di yon yamne Oti mi meva yesan kange chere tenji deba chuani tunge tu jor. Tenji deba chua. Tenji deba mijuani maino. Tenji deba mijuani made balan chua maris. Tunge te. Ani made balan chua maris karas ne ani chua maris chebari. Tunge te Jawada took the Seati. Then it was by your share the Carasina. Jawada to Messiati. To Messiati, the Mini joined Mobatilla. 동네 생겨봐. 니 개와시야 지니 주 개와를 때니 중앙들 개와시게봐. 이 인상 제산다 대지 대바 중앙이 동네도 줄었어. 대지 대바는 민주안이 많이 넣었어. 동네디 대지 대바 중앙 민주안도 말이. 대내 중앙에 제버렸다.
Now, this line here in the next paragraph. Is it? No, sorry, not the next paragraph. Why? Because we call dependent rising emptiness as dependent rising. For those whom it's not quite at the beginning, it should be after. Why? Because we can look at, I think it's here, the end of that first paragraph in 36. Why? Because only that which arises dependently can be suffering, not what does not arise dependently. Since what arises dependently lacks intrinsic nature, it is empty. Because we've got yeah, that's it. It must be there. So, okay, so talking about the dependent arising, this, everything is dependent arising. So then so anything, or effective phenomena, functioning thing, which arises depending upon karma and klesha, karma and the destructive thoughts and emotions, is called truth of suffering. That's suffering. So for the truth of suffering to arise, to come to being, depends upon karma and the klesha. If there's no karma and klesha, then you wouldn't get the truth of suffering. So the truth of so suffering is not something which exists without depending upon anything else, without depending upon cause and conditions. Suffering arises through depending upon causes, karma and the klesha. Happiness. So we talk when we think about happiness and suffering. So happiness arises through depending upon virtue, as it's called. So in this way, suffering is dependent arising.
Yeah, that is. That means the 동네 세야지 그래서게 알았으나 지단 동네 세 동네 세도 소화 질고 위아래 소화 동네 세야지 동네 냠수면이 기타 소화를 질이야 동네 세야를 봐. 이다 지단 동네 세야지 소화 동네기 유일한 지압을 동네 세야. 소화 동네 뒤에서 유일들의 양아 동네 세야. 아텔레 동네 템바스 소화 동네 간을 주에 사제 동네 버텔이야 레니 주에 옹 주에 뭐 버텔이야 니 동네 세야. 자사 동네 들이야 캬바티지 동네 세야. 동네기 동네 세 유르의 동네 세. I think it's Mambayari. It's an Tungu to me, say, when a choa to me of the day. I cabat to jig to me, say, and to Sula choa in Kubia Mari. Yawala choa in Kubia. Choa Tewasiati, choa Tewa Kanajume, Nobody. What is that? To me, say the Namsan Choa to Majil Kubi, never, Choa of Chile. There was it Choa of Chile Kubi never. To me, said Namsan Choa of Chile Kubiarba. There was it Choa of Chile Kubiarba. That Chitachene. 소화 동네 간을 깨서 시 뭐부터래요 동네에서기 소화 대화 간을 중에 Shimobati, Devasi. What is that? To get embassy, to get embassy at it, and to me, Shebacha, see to me, embassy at it, to get embassy at it, Mabuyar said, give it to miss. Chabatuji to miss, to need to miss, Sumierva. Oh, that Chabatuji to miss at the language to Shawaching, Mobatilski. Language is Shawaching, Mobatilata, Chabatuji to miss. Yes, sitting a nami but you city la choa to me messy. City sing it. To me to me, who city theatre, Madame to Choach Gigatuga, to me, Yamkin Choach. Tina Shingi, city sing it. Choa to me sing it Yamare. Someday, right, someday, Shiba inject the choa to me. Munguru are major. Just a thought to me, you see. Quite what that is that to me, say the teenage Jida, Namsan Chola could never.
So if we talk about suffering, clarify a little bit of what's meant by suffering here. Generally speaking, when we talk about suffering, what we think it means is like a suffering sensation, like a painful sensation or suffering feeling, you might call it. Actually, so there is that, but actually the suffering feeling along with the object, along with this object, the object which caused the suffering, these are both called suffering here. So the feeling, the suffering or painful feeling, sensation, along with its object, which is a contaminated object, these are both called suffering. And in fact, when it comes to suffering, we talk about three types, don't we? There's the suffering of change, and the pervasive compounded suffering. So in the case of the the suffering refers to the suffering, feeling of suffering, and it so refers to that, but it also it includes the object of the suffering, the object depending upon which it arises. Dunga sedit anita chor dunga yudan chepa ruala jala de
chor dunga
no. Yeah, so with the suffering of suffering, it refers to the painful or suffering feelings along with the object depending upon which it arose, the object of the suffering, the object that caused the suffering. So in other words, suffering of suffering is not necessarily a feeling in the sense of a sensation. Likewise, the suffering, what you call it, the pervasive compounded suffering, that's not necessarily a feeling. And when we talk about the feeling of happiness, suffering of change, that's not necessarily a feeling also. So it's a product of virtue, and it along with its object would also be included in the suffering of change. So things which depend, the thing which the suffering feeling depends. In other words, you've got the thing depending upon which that suffering feeling occurred. That's also suffering. The thing, the object depending upon which the the happy feeling arose, that's also considered to be happiness. So we have those three types of truth of suffering: the pervasive compounded suffering, suffering of change, and the suffering of suffering. So as far as the pervasive compounded suffering is concerned, so that's that's something which arises through depending upon karma and the destructive thoughts and emotions, the klesha. And that's something that you have throughout. It's called pervasive because you have it throughout cyclic existence. Anybody who's in cyclic existence has that suffering. So that even when we talk about the highest level of cyclic existence, the peak of samsara, it's often called the peak of existence, the siti. So that there's no suffering of suffering, but they still have the suffering, and specifically they do still have the pervasive compounded suffering. In fact, from the fourth concentration upwards, in the form realm, there are four firm contemplations, four firm contemplations. From the fourth one upwards, which means including all of the formless realm, levels of formless realm, there's no manifest suffering of suffering, but they do still have suffering.
That so to me, Nyong si de zamba, Nyong ji de chua di je, kui Nyong ya di to me ji that you think they shabara ji na, chua to me Nyong si gore, Nyong ji de chua di shabara, Nyang ja di to me shabara, di je de you di dendu. To me, shagu. Tangmambole, me, Pigamambole, Tani, me, the Koto, so I to me, the Chicason, me, Nayarvich, Tatani, me, not Chichuach Gigrava, me, Mishibu Kotila, Chuat to me. They do jump a committee chair, Chuat to me, Jibin. To me, here's a city that Mumbutimba, Mumbutil dead in it. In a tea thing to Jack. Carlet in a jewel. Use Mumbuti thing to meet it shower. Young jug to meet it. To Schabina, a tour to me, said you, so I dig in young jug to meet it. You shot. Nyongji de chua de shabin that the Karadua. That kind of thing, try to make the case on it, eating to Kunyams and to meet years. Senator, you tend to meet Shagdua. At the shabin Satan to Miller. Try to make you go into gas. 이제 자선 6년도 초 동네 시작하고 들어갔어.
So you see, we talk of experiencing a suffering feeling. So what it is that's actually doing the experiencing would be the feeling itself, the mental factor, feeling itself. The thing which is going to be experienced as suffering, that also has to be posited as suffering. It's not even though it's not the feeling that's doing it, that's experiencing the suffering. That object also, the object depending upon which the suffering feeling arises, also has to be posited as suffering. Okay, so for example, let's say that you've got a visual consciousness looking at an object, a blue object. And so maybe you keep looking at it, and eventually it becomes painful. So your eye consciousness experiences it as painful. So the basis which that painful feeling arises depending upon is that blue, and that blue also has to be positive as suffering. So it's not just the suffering feeling which is experiencing the object that's positive as suffering. The object itself, which is being experienced as painful as suffering by that feeling, that's also positive as suffering.
That you tunges, tunge chaba tuji tunges, that and the Javajo. Rashi meva tongari. Tunge yunani, tunge kunjuntan, tunge gobatan. Ta tunge yuna, tunge tembati yuna, tunge kunjun city, tunge the college, kunjun tembati. Tunge gobati take it is. Tunge many gobar chinigi, lamdi take it is. And tembashiga take it. Tunge mebina, and tunge Taji Devachum, Tungeti Mena, and Tungeti Kanaju, Kunju Temba Megari. Tungeti Gobe, go dancing at the Megari. Tungeti Goten, the Tover Jinegi. Tungen Gobe, Goten, the Tover Jibe. Lamti Mirua is Jetta, Dembashi Mites at the day. Rising Mena, Rising to not Dembashi Tigmari. Rashi mebala teni tembashi tigre. Oda tedan tiri.
If suffering exists, then, in other words, if the truth of suffering exists, then the origin of that suffering can also exist. That can happen. That's also viable. It's reasonable. So, because the truth of suffering is possible, since everything is empty, existing by its own nature, therefore also the truth of the origin is also viable. Therefore, it's reasonable to speak of ceasing that suffering. So the cessation of that suffering is viable. And therefore also the path which actually does the work of ceasing that, the suffering, the origin of suffering, that's also viable, the truth of the path. In other words, when everything is empty, existing by its own nature, then the four truths they work, they're viable. If things did exist by their own nature, then the truth of suffering couldn't be positive, wouldn't be viable, and then in that case you wouldn't be able to have a truth of origin of that, and therefore you wouldn't have a truth of cessation of that, not a path. The truth of the path which leads to that cessation. So the four truths would not be viable.
That Temba she said the Tunge Temba, Kunju Temba, Nani Golden, Lamden, Stevich, Temba she said the Chetan Tati. Number time give it. Chili Chabet, Chili, Tembashi said, Tiba member down, 27, Tiba members in Ninja, Nenduki Tiba, Ranjigi Tiba, and a teaching it Tiba. Teaching it Tiba Dilin, Docho, Marchos, Yerba, Pajin Tiba said, not Tibas. The Kangolo kept the Yivita. Tembashi did a Kangolo kept in it. Tembashi said, just a Jumde Degi Chutambu, somebody to make Tembashi to somebody. Tying young men in their capsule, Tembashi soon in young men in Tembashi said,
I'm sorry, but I ran out of paper. I didn't realize. I thought I had loads left. So the four, thanks. The four truths, the four noble truths, they pervade the whole of Buddhism. You have the four truths in the hearer vehicle. You have them in the solitary the solitary realizer vehicle. You have them in the Mahayana. Within the Mahayana, we've got the perfection vehicle. We also got the Vajrayana. Both of those have the four truths. And the four truths that's the first thing that the Buddha taught. And it's also the last thing that he taught just prior to entering into parinirvana.
Dambashina Jumde de Tambu Sundu Damba to Mesheva Jas Sumber. The Kararesina Ranju Kuet Devalia to me to Masheviche. To let Devara Chulum Jete into Zambani Tagaran Gokoni Anikarasure teacher to Cindy Karasure Senator Chetty Pinzo to Barabjer, till it was see, there were many of Chinzi to me to Masheviche. Then a teacher to Telegram to Gokoni, Talichi to me, Chadam Mosum, so but they did Mapuchi. Teletini Chadam Mosum Mapuchi Unguervata, did to reach it. City Tiki to reach it. Teletevarajunum, get to migration of Mashival Teneni, Telechane, that Tene Meduba Tamjet delaytani we are Chita. What it is, and it's Jumdet Tambune to Nishabajas, to Nishabajas, Tambusuya did this way. To Nishibacha, Kunju Pawacha, Lam Combercha, Kopangutuchas, Lam Comberchas, Sumbre, just up to Nishibacha, Sati. What it did. And to see Pinzola to meet Mashibiche, the wall of Chidlum, and it deal of Gokwane, any dear, but Teletin any Chimat Gokone, Teletin Chimat Chime Diki to be at Lato. Just have to make sure about
The first thing that the Buddha said then, talking about the truth of suffering, he said suffering is to be known. And the reason why that was the first thing that he taught, the reason why he said the first thing is you need to know suffering is because what's actually something completely samsaric, we think of as being real happiness. We're so convinced that it's real happiness. We get completely caught up in that. And in order to get that, which is actually nothing more than what we might refer to as the wonders of psychic existence, it's just samsaric happiness. We come under the control of the attachment, hatred, ignorance, and our minds filled with that. Then we create we try to get that happiness. And so we do all sorts of things to try to achieve that, all because of not knowing that actually what it is that we think of as happiness and what we're striving for is just suffering. So we're attached to it, and then we try to get it. And then because of that, everything that we don't want happens to us. So therefore, the Buddha taught suffering is to be known. He taught suffering is to be known. The origin is to be abandoned. The cessation is to be actualized or achieved, and the path is to be meditated on. So, so suffering is to be known, because not knowing what's actually suffering, then we completely lose sight of achieving happiness beyond this life.
Yes, Dennis is here. Dennis is here. Chun Dennis, Chimon Dennis, Kinshu Dennis, Tajum Dennis. Oh, that's just a Devunam, you know. Tunge Shabal, no, Tunge Yusi Shabala Soba Yena, Devunam Long, Devichit. Devunam Yena, and then Devulanede. Genesis yet. Rumors. Devil never die, you know, Shubata, you know. The Dene Shibuti, you know, that Shubasiati. Kinshu Shuba, Chimu Shuba, Chimu Shuba, Tajum Shuba Sene. Shubashi still, Shubashi the Yendo. Shubashi the Tigris. Shubanam Yena, Kindu Data, Yena, Kindu rooms, Kindu the Habe Kindu sing it canes and Yushu Shubato in the Habe Kindu Redu, Tonam Tomato Badis and Yushu Shubasi. Pena, Tati Nyarangi, Tonam Dabachina. Tonam nam tobatina shuba totuya. Dine Kejini bala debut tuing. Di insanta shubata. Oh, di yena Fabe Temba yena, Tambe Chujan, Tati, Debula never shubata yena, Kinti Ramos, Takin to just with each. Have Tembanam yena. Tambe Chujan rooms. Habe Temba Shibuti Yuna, Tambe Chu rooms. Tambe Chu see that Tambe Chu Yuna, Tambe Chu da Kindu Yuna, and this Nage Tanji Jukuasi at Tegi. Just that teletene city, ranching me, never let them tended. Then did Teva yes and then did get it. Then did test Ganga, Rashi Mevalative. Rashi Mevala, then did it. Then did Tevalatin and Teletin, teach who see it. Tangi Patuya, you had to take it Egypt. Then did Martin, at the gay Yugama, the manner, then Rashing manner, then did Timur, then did Martina. And it tended to get it never is at Yungeta.
If you understand the suffering, truth of the origin, truth of the cessation, and the truth of the path. Then that makes the results viable. The results, what that specifically means here is the 4 types of result, or the four results. The result of the stream enterer. So anyway, stream enterer result, the once returner result, the non-returner result, and then the arhat result. All those 4 are viable. If those 4 results are possible, then abiding in the results would also be possible. So or viable. So that means that abiding in the fruit of the stream enterer would be viable. Likewise, abiding in the fruit or abiding in the result of the once returner, abiding in the result of the non-returner, abiding in the result of the arhat. Those would be viable. If those results are viable, then what happens prior to that would also be viable, which means entering into those results. So, in other words, we talk about entering into the stream enterer, entering into the once returner, entering into the non-returner, entering into the arhat result. So, those 4 enterers would be viable. Then that means that the sangha, rare and sublime sangha or sangha, that would be viable. So I think, yeah, we already mentioned that the enterers, you've got the 4 enterers and the 4 abiders in the result. So the 4 enterers come first, then after that the abiding result. So in fact, the way it works, if we look at the path of the hearer, when you achieve entering into the stream enterer, that means that you've achieved the path of seeing. So all of these 8, the 4 enterers and the 4 abiders in the result, they're all Arya levels. Those are all Arya levels. So what this means then is that so to go to be even more precise, that as soon as you've achieved entering into the stream enterer, you've achieved the path of seeing. The very next moment, you've achieved the result of the stream enterer, or the stream enterer result, and it goes on from there. So if what this means then is that if the 4 truths are viable, then the sangha, rare and sublime sangha is viable. Likewise, if the 4 truths are viable, the holy dharma is viable. So in other words, the rare and sublime sangha and the dharma are both viable. If those are viable, then also the rare and sublime Buddha is viable. So the 3 rare and sublime ones are viable. So this all goes back down to everything being empty of its own nature. Within everything existing by its own nature, dependent arising can happen. And then, because of dependent arising, then all those things, one by one, as I mentioned, are all viable.
What the? Tambe chöda kindu yuna ni sangye kyang rungus tatiri tambe chöda tambe chö mena tamju nyamsulambala tini kindu yuna ya mebari kindu mebari na tini ji ane lamla lone ni jeje spinner lamla lone ni sanji jukoma tu sia de maybe imbarba karesena tambe chue ta kindu yuna sanje dungs Sanje siati tambechul tene chunguyare ta kindu de tambechul tene chunguyare ta jida chukunjo siati tonam thomindu tamba chukunjo re kindu chibare kindu de tambe chukunjo thobata kindu kunjo thobate dunyamde dine 최단 긴주 군조를 때는 상계세야지 아니 제수 연구를 다 긴주 군조에 근데 시적으로 했으면 긴주 군조에 니라 최 냠스 랭구비야 봐 데이터 dine pabe tembanam yuna tambe che rungla sikra longa jurus tambe che da kindu yuna dini ni butichita junyam tu kuya juru di che kunjo sumya rungus di insane kunjo sumta tigri tendi rashingi mena rashingi mebala ta kunjo sum tigri jiden badan jiden le debe ngubu tamje kebardo toba tamje runglas da jiden dan jiden le debe ngubu tamje kebardo toba tamje jang runglas kebardo toba jiden da jiden le debe kebardo tobe ta chu da jiden da jiden le debe 추니스 뒤쪽에 추강가 디 콘스토베 나 탐제자롱라 용라 되네 땡지 대바중 라신기 매바이는 땡지 대바중 용거 말이 땡지 대바중 매나 지된다 지된리 대바스야 대용 지된다 지된리 대바스야 대지 되게 되지고네 샤바라 뭐부 탐제 도바 탐제자롱라 최다 최만인바요 다다 대부다 지된 베타니 탐제자는 거죠. 최다 최만인바세야지 되지고는 샤버바 최세야지 최만인바세야지 간지스 샤버레지니 되지고는 샤리야바 땡지 매베는 최만인바이면이야 말 최유야 말 라이싱이 매는 땡지메데 땡지매는 안데 땡지메테는 최다 최만인바 되는 말이 그래서는 최다 최만인바들 찔 때는 샤구야 최만인바 찔 때는 니 최시야 되는 거야 최만인바를 때는 최샤 최시야 돼 최를 최만인바를 때는 샤디야 디 샤바인사 최다 최만인바 당 디 대부당 네 다다 디 대부당 지덴베 타니 장롱아 주로 이 체를 대사는 간라 동반이로 왔다 삼제로 왔다 간라 동반이로 왔다 된지 대버주한 매베 탐제 미루마 주로 시에송 롱 미루니 대다 유여바다 매발라 구ar죠 롱 마루세야티 된지 라시니 매나 네 된지 되말이 된지 요 된지 대버주한 미루아레스도 된지 유 된지 라싱이 투바 라싱이 투나 된지 대버주한 매발 라싱이 매발을 때니 된지 대버주한 유여바리 롱세야티 유여다 매발을지
Because the Holy Dharma and the Sangha are viable, for that reason the Buddha is viable, is suitable. If there were no Holy Dharma, then there couldn't be any Sangha that come about through practicing that holy dharma.
That 문제 담배 취다 긴주 세트 담배 취 세트 취군주 세트.
No.
지단 취 세트 문제 나란주기 취념의 지야야르바. 취군주 세트 통놈네 시기야 지다. 긴주 군주 세트네 시기야르바. That is it.
So here it's what we need to understand is that although we talk about practicing dharma, even we talk about practicing dharma, but when we talk about the dharma as in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the rare and sublime ones, the rare and sublime dharma, that would that only includes like the qualities of the mind from the path of seeing upwards. Okay, path of seeing upwards. Right? In other words, yeah, path of seeing upwards. So if there's no dharma, then there's no there would be no sangha that practices that. If there's no sangha, then there would be nobody that practices the path and achieves Buddhahood. Okay. So no holy dharma, then no sangha. No sangha, then nobody that practices the path and achieves Buddhahood. So the Buddha comes into being through depending upon the dharma. So you have the dharma, actually the rare and sublime dharma, which means which you achieve when you achieve the path of seeing. At the same time that you achieve that dharma jewel, you also achieve the sangha jewel. So those two are achieved at the same time. So in other words, so the dharma jewel would be like the path of seeing, and then the sangha would be the person who has that that path of seeing in the continuum. So those two come at the same time. The Buddha would come later. So the first thing that is to practice the Dharma. So the thing is that then all this is possible because of everything being empty of their own nature, existing by their own nature. Because there's nothing which is natural in that sense, therefore the four truths are possible. Because the four truths are possible, therefore the three rare and sublime ones are possible. Otherwise, they wouldn't be possible. And then the text, this same passage quoted from the clear words, it goes on to say, yeah, it looks like it would be the the middle of the page, 136, where it says, all profound knowledge of everything mundane and supermain also makes sense. Proper and improper conduct, the results of that, and all worldly conventions make sense as well. So in the context of, or where, in other words, where there is nothing existing by its own nature, then the worldly and the transcendental are all possible. So literally, worldly and beyond the world and beyond the world, because, which actually are two categories that include everything which exists, all phenomena. And if things were not empty of existing by their own nature, then there would be no dependent arising. If there's no dependent arising, you can't have one thing relying upon the other or depending on the other. Whereas in fact, we have the world and beyond the world, if we could put it that way, they exist relative to each other. You can't posit the world without doing so relative to beyond the world. You can't posit beyond the world without doing so relative to the world. So they can only be positive, and they can only exist by relative to each other. Whereas then that would mean that they're dependent arising, and so and so they wouldn't be possible when nothing is nothing is empty of existing by their own nature. And the same goes for where it says about the what was it, like proper and improper conduct, as they put it. So literally, so dharma and non-dharma. These are also positive relative to each other. And therefore, if things did exist by their own nature, if they weren't empty of existing by their own nature, then you wouldn't be able to posit the dharma and non-dharma. So here, I'm not quite sure of the word at the moment that they use here for runga and mirunga. So runga usually is something like suitable or not suitable. So it talks about that a lot in this passage, doesn't it? Suitable and not suitable, or making sense, not making sense. What that actually means is existing or not existing.
That is it. Ngar jambe, jondo ki jobati lendu yang, zanshi neba la jaji tebe len lobing ki sawa jetis. That ngar shebe jondo ki, jondo sheti ki jobati kuwe. Mawa ki, zashi ki kapsu shuda jara shiki mebari silabariwa. Jara shiki mena, ane chuji tsi jara shi mebari. Tsi yara shi mebari. Tsi mara shiki mebari na, ane rashi mebari kaus gogure. Zawa shire kausu rashi mebari kagi yarwa. Tsi rashi ki mena, shodan jara shiki mebari na, tsi rashi ki mebari gogure. Tsi rashi ki mebari na, ane jando makarasa, zawa shire bi tsi le teni, zawa shire le teni, rashi mebari kanda tsi kagure. Zawa shire kuna rashi yamarwa, tsi rashi ki mebari bas, jane, ngaji, jobati, jando jobati te, jobati te tuwa, jando le.
No.
Ngarja tinju tiangale dua.
No.
Jandole katingu samje ji rashi kun la yumi na chuji tija rashi me rashi dobar mini pe mini sos wata jobati.
No, no. So then it goes on to mention again these words from the rebuttal of arguments. Okay. So anyway, the text used the title refutation of objections, right? So not the one at the bottom of the page. We're still in the passage quoted from the Prasanapada. So it says, therefore, in that way, Nagarjuna says, for those to whom emptiness makes sense, everything makes sense. So you have to go back a few pages. I found that it's towards the bottom of page 132, where it says, that's where you see the whole verse quoted. For whomever emptiness makes sense, everything makes sense. Everything for whomever emptiness makes no sense, nothing makes sense. Actually, that's not the verse that we want. It's the one where it says, if nothing exists by its own nature, then your words there. Actually, page 131. Right. Sorry. Yeah. If all things are completely without intrinsic nature, then your words also lack intrinsic nature and cannot refute intrinsic existence. So this rebuttal of arguments is that passage that's quoted from there is dealing with an argument that's been made by the realists, the Ngama, the realists, and what they say is in the Mulamadhyamaka Karika, Nagarjuna, the fundamental verses on the middle way. He says that nothing exists by its own nature. So if you're going to say that means that even the words that you're using to refute existence by its own nature, they would also have to exist, be empty of existing by their own nature. So they wouldn't be able to refute anything. So that's the argument that Nagarjuna is dealing with in there.
Rashi mena ni chuji tsija rashi me ni rashi me bati tsikdigi rashi me ba go to maris jeni jobati yumala ti jondo se jobati pakai chitu jondo singet debi ne tida ti lendi tiri jondo le manam tene juan kan dini tungi je jatan kanshi tene juan ti rashi mengi yimbar mas yesum stati na jodo be sit lendi tiri jobati ge chinsu ma jondo jobati lendi la dale jondo be kasu lendi
Jobati kene ane
jobati jondo chebaraba
no lade
zashi le ya jobati chuma mama wa jobati chuma ba jobati ge kasu ba 이 기타 제네 야르디 저버디 냐를 거스마
lade
다때 저버디 파가야디 아니 전도스게 저버지샤 이 도베체도 아니 전도스니 숨버와
kala tomba nirwa
아
jobat toyala ane
도야디 전음 때네 중앙 강 이니 동이 제자 당 간시 때네 중앙디 라시 민이 임발 마스 저거 꾸데도
ale tandite sigsegi no
저거 디게는 거스마
lade
이 렌스 저 전도 코라나
yeah so the so this text, the rebuttal of the refutation of objections, was composed by Nagarjuna, and it was written to deal with this type of argument. Like where you would say that even though if nothing exists by its own nature, even your words will have no nature, therefore they won't be able to refute anything. And so now, so what this means is, you see, that text, refutation of objections, states an objection that's been made, and then refutes the objection. And where he refutes it is in this verse, which is quoted on page 136, just after the quote from the Prasnapada. So it says, if all things are completely without intrinsic nature, then your words also lack intrinsic nature, and that's going to refute intrinsic existence. So that's actually the argument, isn't it? So then the reply is at the top of page 137. Yeah, we propound that the dependent arising of things is called emptiness. That which arises dependently has no intrinsic nature. Teni Jungwa kan teni tompani toni chejada kanji teni Jungwa te ranjin meni imparma topa. Yeah, so that's the one that actually that's the refutation of that argument.
That dini karishik dosena chönam teni Jungwa kan teni tomba ten de yesa tomba is jishe kanji teni Jungwa ti ranjin meni sidi Tende yinsa rashi mebaris. Rashi tende yinsa rashi mebaris chikje. Chönam tene jungwa kan dini tomba nitu shes. Tende yinsa ni rashi tombaris je chas. Tende yinsa rashi tombaris. Kashi tene jungwa ti rashi meni yimbar mas. Chö kanshi. 아니 때네 중앙티 라시 메바 마스 때네 중앙 인사 라시 메바 니 마스티 뭐는 때네 중앙 강 아테리 디네 라시 아테리 때네 중앙 텐주 강이 버티 라시 메바 라시 라시 시 때네 중앙티 라시 메니 아다디 무안함 때는 중앙 강 뒤에 동반이 시 동반이 진짜 때가 동반이 시그리 시단 시그 동반 시그리 간시 때는 중앙디 라시미니 임버마스 간시 때는 중앙디 라시미 땡주 디라시미메바 라시 땡주 때는 중앙디 라시미메바 때는 중앙 규정이 라시 메바지 간시 때는 중앙디 라시미메바니 때는 중쿠라 라시미메바리스 라시미메바를 때는 땡지 중앙라 때는 라시미메스 땡지 쿠라야 라시미메바리스 땡지 인사 라시미메바리스 제 지글 라시 땡지 쿠라야 라시미메바리 어디 있으니 땡지를 때는 라시미메바스 쉐버바 근데 땡지 쿠라 아니 라시기 가르레스니 땡지 쿠라야 라시미메바리 땡지를 때는 라시미메바시 라시미 땡지 쿠라야 라시미메바리 세수중아 처남 때는 중앙강 때는 동반이 제자 간시 때는 중앙기 라시미니 임버마스 땡지 쿠라야 라시미메바리 뭐이 셰순디 다디 랑제데데 그런도 랑제시디 고물로도 쿠란데 랑제 최기니 뭐는 최기니 뭐보남지 동반이 전空도 맞춰봐라 최기 지가 신내가 인지체를 뭐보남지 신 오바 밑에도 랭가초와 마르치디 다디랑 제디 최기니 뭐보남지 동반이 전空도 맞춰봐라 아니 최기 치 라신기 메바 인비체를 저 라신기 치 라신기 메바 인비체 뭐보는 기라신 고바 메테도 담는가 좋았대 다디게 저거디 란데디 알랭가 좋아래 마르치디스 다디 뭐마와 그러봐 저거 그니 마르치디 얘네 뭐보는 때네 중앙 강이버 대니 동반이 이노 지지 처리시는 라시 메바니 임베처 뭐보 간다 뭐보 간다 땡제 대바 중앙 대단히 라시인데 제바 마인데 라시 메르 지지 처리시는 조대 견했더니 저바다 집에처 가디 뭐보는 라시기 유난히 요다게 메장 여버길라 가디 뭐보는 네 라시기 유나 그다 예 매장 여버지 라신 그 교수나 요다게 매장 여고 그래 여버지 요시나 대다 양 마인바 티처를 요다게는 매바 양 여버지 되게 말이 대다나야 마인바 티처를 요다게는 되는 마주한테 말아봐 요다게 매장 중한테 말아봐 이 매바 인사 대다 마인 바디체 라시 매바 인데 대나 동반이요 시저 체도 대신도 치기장 치니장 내 치기장 땡제 대바 중한테 디체를 라시면 내 치대 자와시로 다 몽골로도 그런 치대 라시 매바로 지게 치디야 라시 매바리 가르레스네 땡제 대바 용 땡제 대바 중앙에 사라시 매바데스 라시 매바니 베처 동바오 시테 태바인 네.
So we have this verse from the refutation of objections, where it says, we propound that the dependent arising of things is called emptiness. That which arises dependently has no intrinsic nature. So what this is saying is that it's because everything is a dependent arising that everything is empty of existing by its own nature. This verse is also saying that dependent arising itself is empty of existing by its own nature. That's what this verse is saying. And then Junji goes on to quote from Nagarjuna's own commentary to his text, Refutation of Objections. So this is on page 137. Failing to comprehend the emptiness of things, you essentialists, so sorry, they're calling them essentialists, I remember that from before. The realists, in this text, they call them the essentialists. For something to criticize and argue against the Madhyamika, saying, your words lack intrinsic nature and therefore cannot refute the intrinsic nature of things. So that's stating their argument that if everything is empty of existing by its own nature, then your words which you're using to refute existence by its own nature would also be empty of existing by their own nature, and therefore wouldn't be able to, they wouldn't be able to refute anything. Here in the Madhyamika, the dependent arising of things is emptiness. Why? Because they lack intrinsic nature. Those things that arise dependently are not associated with intrinsic nature because they lack intrinsic nature. Why? Because they rely on cause and conditions. If things had intrinsic nature, then they would exist even without cause and conditions. Since such is not the case, they lack intrinsic nature. Therefore, we speak of them as empty. So right at the beginning of he's stating the argument made by the realists or the essentialists. And then what he's saying is, if a thing existed by its own nature, then it would be possible for it to exist even without cause and conditions. And this is clearly not the case. Then he goes on to, he's also, in that same paragraph, he goes on to say, my words, in other words, the words of myself, Nagarjuna, they also are not, have no natural existence. They have no existence by their own nature. And why is that? It's because they are dependent. Arising.
That Chitaris, Rachimebatum, that Chitaris in Bombata, Nambula Soba, Tenji Debachua, in the chair, Lansing Tomba Inja, that Bombata Nambula Soba Tusu, Tenji Deva, Tenji Yin San, and the Lansing Tomba is, Lansing Tomba Yinia, and it Tanjita, Shuda, Utula Soba Lemba City, the Bombati Tanzilania. Ani chuliya, utula sobatita zimba chigaris, pumbati ranshing me by inia. Ani lambatan, Tranda, Lunda, Nima, Yonsuchoba Chabasiati, Nambuti, Ani Namtonri Dutamba, Nambuti Gombalateni, Tamale Jubier, Long Lake Jubier. 里面这对可讲白呢，你绿了，你们里面抽烟的，用抽烟了吧？而且上真把当时的不把的人性没把这的不把的政治人呀的抽到，我除了说把真把这个的，呢。 Nambu dige rashi ki ya mari de chawa le kyuba chawa to so chawa le kyuba lungi ki reche le kyuba nima la suba de ta le kyuba chigre dinashi nge chikya rashi tenji jaba chunga yesa rashi ki mecha ngoba na rashi meba tubar nikudi yuba yimbe chere yala tsi rashi ki meba nyi yimbe chere ngoba tamje rashi ki goba tamje mayimba mayimba shimawa kanyimba di miru ngus atati jendi imbari chikdi ipetele te pumbata nambula so
Then in the next paragraph, in the middle of page 137, he goes on to explain what he means using some examples. So he says, similarly, my words are also dependent arisings, and therefore are without intrinsic nature. Because they lack intrinsic nature, it's reasonable to say that they're empty. So here are the examples. Because things such as pots and cloth are dependent arising, they're empty of intrinsic nature. So even though a pot is empty of intrinsic nature, empty of existing by its own nature, still it can receive and hold honey and water, soup. A cloth can protect you from the if it's cold, then it can stop you from getting cold. If it's windy, then the cloth protects you from the wind. If the sun's beating down on you, then it can protect you from the sun. So even though they are respectively empty, still respectively they have those functions that they can perform. They can still do that. And then he goes on to say, it's the same with my words. And so it is with my words, because they're dependent arising, they're also empty of existing by their own nature. And nevertheless, just like the vase can hold honey and so on, and the cloth can protect from the cold and so on, despite being empty of existing by their own nature, so also my words, despite being empty of existing by their own nature, they can still refute existence by its own nature. No, no. Okay, so we've sort of reached, sort of like the end of that passage. So maybe now, if there are any questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rinpoche, if things are empty of existing from their own side and don't have an inherent existence, how do they function if they are changing and, if they're impermanent and they're dependent on other things coming to, how does that cup hold tea?
If it's empty, you mean?
Yeah, how does it do it?
That penade mogdirachi chashana. The chiran jenada chutanji rangi duba yina and the chajitan so candis take yours. Penachashana Mugdi rangi drube tomba yina. Rangani drube tomba yina. No, never yina. Then it didn't Coviluat and Covita Chichuad and in the Chaluat and the Candisores.
What did it? Chaluat Karasure. Rashiki never inside Rashiki never inside any tendy tables. Rashiki never inside tendy table. Tendy table inside Luia's table. Rashiki tuna, you get a matuguri. You get a maduna cook to say Amari. Ani kunal child to say Amari. Kunal chaluba like you jump to Gurba. Kun Povet Mokura Rashik to Vayna, Jujan Matuba Jungu. Jujan Matuba Junia Chiliamarava. Oh, Rashiki never yesa, Ani Jujan the Tenich wanted to bury. Kunando Chaluyati Chaluya tenditi, Jujiti Tegiari. Kurashiki Mebayina, could think Jaluyagi, Denditi, Metibari, Jaluyagi, Gugin, Memory to Buddha. Just Rashiki troops into Tampa. Teacher Tanda Rashingi troops at the Rashingi mess at the Carisasum. Rashingi troops at the Carisasum. You get a metuba chuatilla. You get Rashingi troops, you get a metuba chum here. Rashingi mess at the Tan Meva Maiba. You get a ten junior till Rashi Mevas. Rashi mess at the you get a ten junior till Rashi Meva. Rashi troops and you get a metuba chuat. You get a metuba chuat yard vessel.
You Mitabe.
Jujan and Metubati, Rashi to be 20, Jujan and Metuba Juatimba. Jujan Matuba Junyagi Chuchi Mary. Chukandachini Jujan to Quiva. And any Rashi to make Jujan and Metuba Chushawris. Chuti Vayari, Jujan to be chit.
The thing is that it's because things are empty of existing by their own nature that the dependent arisings can happen. So in other words, it's because of being empty of existing by their own nature that the dependent arising of pouring tea into a mug can happen. So pouring tea into a mug is dependent arising. That can only happen because of being empty of existing by its own nature. It wouldn't be possible if there's no dependent arising, which is what would happen if things did exist by their own nature or did exist from their own side. So, you have to think back to what we were saying about what it means to say something doesn't exist by its own nature or does exist by its own nature. What did we say it meant for something to exist by its own nature, which is what it would have to be if it wasn't empty of existing by its own nature? What did we say about that? The thing is that there's nothing which isn't empty of existing by its own nature. In other words, there's nothing which does exist by its own nature because everything is dependent arising. So everything depends upon causes and conditions, doesn't it? And something which is dependent upon causes and conditions, we refer to as empty of existing by its own nature. For something to exist by its own nature, then it would have to be independent of causes and conditions. So you should be able to say something which exists independent of cause and conditions. So where is there such a thing? So is this book here something which came into being, through itself, independent of anything else? It's not something that exists. It's not something like a self substantiating or self creating phenomenon, is it? No. So the thing is like something which exists by its own nature is something which exists in and of itself without depending upon anything else. So like this book, it's empty of existing by its own nature because it depends upon causing conditions and so on. So you
Mautira Shingi Matrumna, Tina Jalu, Karache, take marriage, Mautira Shingi to Barich, Sierra. I think Mautira Shingi to Venetira Shingi to Suna. Ranjun Resunas, Ranjun said that Rashingi to Bachibari. Ranjun said Kurangi top gear Jewish, Eugenian Matuba. Ranjun to Batan Ranjun said the Chiparva.
You see, when you say that if the mug is empty of existing by its own nature, then you wouldn't be able to do things like pouring tea into it. Then what you're saying, so what you're saying is that the mug exists by its own nature. Because you're saying if it's empty of existing by its own nature, then you wouldn't be able to pour tea into it. So that means you have to be saying that it exists by its own nature. Existing by its own nature is the same as Rangjun is a bit like self-creating. In other words, coming into existence without depending upon anything else. So that's what you would have to be saying, that the mug exists by its own nature means it exists completely independent of anything else.
Tanya Rapachen Labiari, Jidengi. Karada Ranju said, Kibugu, Zoa Musum Matuba, Kibutoa Musum Matuba Ongi, Matuba Musum Matuba Ongi Chuma, yes, and Ranchu celebrity. Kuranzani, the Ranju Jigia Maritita, could you get it in a Chumarva? Madame to Sula Ranchus, Malabia Tikaresan. Ranju Marikaris and Kibutoal, Musuteni Chuarva. Is a Ranju Maris Lavarva. Or Dinashi, the real Sobatusula Ranchum Seati, who Tanya Rapacheni. Zoa Rapalatin Machuari, Chiasaneti, Ranju Silavari Mishutia, the Kuran Ranju Mari. Koi Kujan, Tudem Mambutuba, attend Chumari Chasha Mambutu, attend Jam. Ah, Chuarva.
We were saying, talking about a mountain. There's this sort of like a.
Me server my son, most be server Marva, Nico Ranju selection. Those who can go me server yes, Ranju Mari selection.
So this is kind of like an expression that we would normally use in the world, on a gross level, that something is Rangjung. So it's like. Just occurring naturally. So we have this idea of it being occurring naturally and therefore not depending upon anything else, by which we mean really it didn't require the sort of like the direct efforts of anybody for it to come about. The mountain, for example, mountain. In other words, nobody had to make it. So we have that idea, that's kind of like naturally occurring phenomenon. Whereas when you look into it, actually, it does depend upon various causes and conditions, and it depends upon parts. It depends upon the atoms and molecules from which it's made. So that's just like that expression, like it's independent or natural in the sense nobody made it. But that's kind of like a gross kind of level. In fact, when you go into it, you can see that even a mountain isn't independent, isn't sort of like self-creating, naturally created, I should say.
Thank you so much, Rinpoche. I just please, I need some clarification. At one point, it was mentioned that the 4 viable results are the 4 that from understanding, from understanding the 4 noble truths you would have, that would lead to the 4 viable results, which are stream, entering, one's return, non-return, and arahat. And then right after that, I heard, and I could be hearing incorrectly, that with the hearer, when one achieves entering into the stream, one achieves the path of seeing.
Entering into the stream entry, yeah.
Yeah, and one achieves the path of seeing, and path of seeing, achieving path of seeing is, my understanding is direct realization of emptiness. And wouldn't that be at the result of arahatship instead of entering the stream?
Are you saying that you had the idea that direct realization of emptiness would only come when you become an arhat? Is that what you mean?
Or achieving path of seeing is having the realization of emptiness.
Direct realization of emptiness,
Yes.
yeah.
And I thought that would be the result of that would be the level of arahatship.
Okay.
And here it says when at the first level of entering the stream.
That does do not sambala page it. Toning and Donna and it touch of Machagitos. Casnet Tisumbra that the Meshi Sushina and it Tebutu Tebushita take it as and the Shubu and take it as any Gunju Shubati Tobata Dunyam do any the Palang Tolam Tobitos, Toning and Topi Lamdi Tobitos Sumbrava. That the Dachon bit couple of Shagamares.
Mare. The issue metena to Musun to Tobati Meterva. To Musun to Toban Metena, to Musun to Tobalatini. I mean, Yomopamba Ting Marva. Sigurd Mission. Nia Sadambut Penas Sadamburi. To Musun to into Sadambut. In Sachuba, but we are driven. Nakarasa. Tiji Tajum Batobala, Sakeba Patu Yera Tajum Batobala, ni Tonamche, Golamche, ani Timig Milulam Tobu Yarva, Lamambu Tribuyaritinia, Jinshutumni, Lamambu Yatruyaritanda, Sad Tibachimbrinas. Sajula so but in the Tomani Saki reading was Tiji Tajumati, Tajumati, Sanji Matoya Marva.
Just that the Tony knows the toilet Tonga Yores, Kongan Yores, Yorwa, Sumjal.
Yari.
So the Modis said that the need Tonga Topigana and it Tony Topores. Somebody Kandi invested when he sent the Rajamba Matota, she ended the Tony Tokyo Maris, some euro. Yeah, so, well, yeah, so if it were not possible, well, anyway, the basically in answer to your question, so when you achieve the end, that level of the enter into the stream entra, that's when you first have a direct realization of emptiness. So it's like you become the enter into stream entra, you achieve the path of seeing, and you have the direct realization of emptiness, so all at the same time. So then that direct realization of emptiness has to be developed. So like, for example, if we think about the Mahayana path, you first, you have, when you first have the direct realization of emptiness, then you achieve the first ground, and then you gradually proceed through to second, third, and fourth, and so on. Then it's so you become Mahayana Arhat. To get that, then you have to go to the eighth ground. Whereas in the case of the Hinayana, when they become the Arhat, it's right at the end of their path. They get path of seeing, the path of meditation, path of no more learning. That's when they become the Hinayana Arhat.
Yeah.
So, Rinpoche, so the Prasangika sounds reasonable, right? Yeah. But so why the Sautrantika still say that everything is nature dependent? So, I mean,
why they say what?
the Sautrantika said that everything is
Exists by its own
exists by
nature.
its own nature.
Yeah.
So what's the reason that they give to keep saying that? Because they're pretty high up, right?
Whereas even we get a sense that
Right.
what the President says, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But then also you need the danda the tangible to zuki any ranganim to be tomba res. Ranganim to be tomba mina any that identity shatu kudos. Thing also you need this hakudra. The tangible the casa the rangible to kebekebara. Any you need ranganim to be res. Chene the huge gag does. The carres. Nazo hakona kozo hamako carres.
Maju tingive tawala dini labiyarwa. Gombolu to lesobas. To sugi ma tena papshabati jesusune labiyarwa. Adi maju labiyati tirita ni tingive jesutani labiyarwa. Kuranzu giti maris. Any Tawati, Rangibe Tawati, Kuranzu, Samla Shindachitani, Rashid Propsier. Thank you very Rashid to be Seti, Majimbeje. Kuranzu, the Rashid to be Set Shagiri. Rashid to be Set Adari, my. Kunete, Zening to Chesarangun to Sichas. Ramon to what Tata to marry. Ramon to say at the Ranchu, Siana Mativa, Rawan to Tubasi, Siana Mativa to Rawan to Tubasi, Ranching to Baset, Chibat, Jenny, did it.
The thing is that, we're talking Prasangika here, it's like we're sort of like studying the view of the Prasangika, which means that we have this idea that nothing exists by its own nature because of, the way that, because of the usually rely upon the teachings of Nagarjuna. We have this kind of understanding through the teachings of Nagarjuna. Whereas these other scholars who are saying things exist by their own nature, they have that idea. They have something else in mind when they say existing by its own nature. In other words, the Prasangika say that nothing exists by its own nature, and they're saying everything exists by its own nature. What it means to exist by its own nature is different. These two, the Prasangikas and the others, they have a different idea of what it would mean for something to exist by its own nature. In fact, like from our point of view, when they say, well, to exist by its own nature means that you would be able to find it when you search for it. That's what it means to exist by its own nature. They don't say that to exist by its own nature means to be completely independent of anything. They say it means you can find it when you look for it. Then the Prasangika's view is that, well, actually, if that's what you mean by existing by its own nature, in other words, that things can be found when you look for them, then actually, if something can be found when you look for it, then it would have to exist by its own nature, and it would have to be completely independent.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rinpoche. I'm sorry. I have a follow-up question to my previous question. So, if the entering into the stream is the direct
Entering into stream, enter. Entering into stream, enter, and abiding result of stream, enter.
Okay. So, if that is the direct realization of emptiness, then if one has that realization, wouldn't that means one would be out of samsara out of cycle existence. But here, the second level is once returned. So
Yeah, okay.
how come
Yeah.
that is?
But 단도 the 균식 슈발라양 아니 the toning the tode요나. The toning the tona 아니 the quality 저자로와. 디사.
quality toning is the toning is the top at some getting a toning is the tony. The Tajumatola, the Kupanguer, Tibet Panguer, even Tomani Musu developed Kone compared to Chini, Tartubarevici Chunguari. Imagine a co at the Never Tomani but Zamji, and Pontuiamari. Tony Musu the Kuetawa and it, Lashime, but the Kuetawa Dingile, not Dingy, she may but it over. Dority, the Tajumba Tuvala, Pambat to Gugge, Pambat Tuvala, doing motion to be shit some Gigamari. Dineatini Jinsuje, Dine Jinshude, nursing into Tugari. Dine Chimun Seacher. Dine Chimun Seacher. Ane deveni motel pen, deveni motel cor query. Ani Jinshu Janet to be in December, Ani Katsuguri. Injikunda, Tichumbari. Any Achini, any Jinshu Jet. Chimu Dene Kapsu correct doing you to go in Major Pamber. Chimu goes doing you Kubati Panga. You are.
Kubalo.
No. Did it? Any thunder city down. Someday the Sumid Motipan to Yammer. This just a charge but any sitting mostly in the pan. Then you must the very Mukuran the Kor Queer. You modeling Mukundata, Kangis near. Tonum to into the Quidati Pantu. Can get the Pantu Yammer. Dinea Dineni, shoes, Chums, Dinet Chums to do them but the ring window of Kanga Pampri. Dinea, many someday said to be Moda, Sumigi said to be Motipaya Mari.
Well, it's just directly realizing emptiness isn't enough to make you an arhat. What happens is you have the direct realization of emptiness, and that has to be developed so that it becomes stronger and stronger. Because you see, just having a direct realization of emptiness isn't enough to completely remove the true grasping, which is the root cause of cyclic existence. Even though when you have that direct realization of emptiness, you have realized that the object of the true grasping mind doesn't exist. In other words, you realize that there is nothing which is truly existent. Still, that's not enough to abandon the root cause of psychic existence and all of the destructive thoughts and emotions which are derived from it. So therefore, you have this process of going from the stream entering into the stream entra, then abiding the result of the stream entra, then the entering into the once returner, the result of the once returner. Yeah, then the entering into the non-returner, the result of the non-returner, entering into arhat, and then the actual abiding result of the arhat. So you have to go through all those stages in order to be able to abandon every last layer of the true grasping and all of the other mental afflictions. So there are the klesha, or the destructive thoughts and emotions of the desire realm, form and formless realm. So the klesha of the desire realm are divided up into like 9 layers or 9 cycles. Let's say like 9 cycles literally. So when you achieve, and also when we talk about the klesha, the destructive thoughts and emotions, let's say, to put it simply, the true grasping, there's the artificial or learned one, and then there's the naturally occurring one, what we call the innate true grasping. So when you achieve the first of the 8, which is entering into the stream enterer, then you're on the path of seeing, and when you're on the path of seeing, you can only completely abandon the artificial true grasping and the other mental afflictions. The innate ones are abandoned on the path of meditation gradually in stages. So how this works in the context of these 4 levels, or the 8, in other words, because you've got the 8 enters and the 4 enters and the 4 results. So there's 8. When you so when you achieve the enter into the stream enter, that's when you first directly realize the entrance, right? So then when you achieve the result of the stream enter, then you've abandoned the artificial klesha. Then when you achieve the result of the once returner, you do that by abandoning the first 6 of the 9 layers of the desire realm afflictions, or klesha. And then when you achieve the result of non-returner, that means that you've achieved, you've abandoned all 9 of the desire realm afflictions. But you still haven't yet started to abandon the afflictions of the form realm or the formless realm. Once you've abandoned all of the afflictions, not just of the desire realm, but also of the form realm and the formless realm, then you, which includes having abandoned the afflictions of the top of the 4 levels of the formless realm, in other words, the peak of existence, which we talked about before. That's when you achieve the result of the lhak. And something I missed out there was when we talk about the once returner having abandoned the 6 levels. That means the 6 levels of the manifest desire realm afflictions. And likewise with the non-returner, you've abandoned all 9. That means all 9 manifest desire realm afflictions.